We are here with our special guest,
Legendary.
Yes, Suzanne de Passe is a
Goodness.
legend in this business. I mean, really on top for 50 years. 50 years on top. Now, the folklore goes, and you never know, especially when it comes to Motown, like what's urban legend and was that you were the booking agent of the Cheetah Club in New York?
Yeah.
Is that
I started at Cheetah
how'd you get that job?
because I could dance.
Wait a minute. Okay. So the Cheetah, it's not the strip club, the
No.
Cheetah.
No. Actually, what it was, I had gone to Syracuse University, hated it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it started snowing in October, didn't thaw till May.
Right.
And I had gone to a very small private school for my entire, my entire life,
Mhm.
kindergarten through 12th grade in one school. So anyway, long story short, I go to this giant university. I can't stand it. I fall in love with the captain of the football team who was graduating. And I was not going to be stuck up in those woods, and he was going to go play for the Washington Redskins. So I dropped out.
Mm.
And my mother insisted that I go to school somewhere. So I enrolled at Manhattan Community College.
Mm-hmm.
And while there, my girlfriends said, you're such a stick in the mud. You're engaged to this guy. And that went down the old toilet
Sure.
facility. That was nothing.
Uh-huh.
So we went out. They said, come on, this new club is opening on 52nd Street and Broadway. And I said, great. So I'll go. And we were cute and we could dance.
Uh-huh.
And they thought we were cute and that we could dance. So they
Uh-huh.
gave us passes to come back on other nights
Uh-huh.
and lively up the place. Well, it held like 3,000 people. Did not serve alcohol. It was Pepsi.
That's a huge club.
Huge.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just a dance hall with live music because it was before the DJ era.
Sure.
So there were 3 bands, and each band would play the song of the band preceding it, as they were ending. So it was
Uh-huh.
always continuous music.
How about
right?
that?
So I was, always very much in love with my opinions. And so I
I
would tell the managers whom I came to know, this band is great. Bring them back. This band sucks. We can't dance to this,
Mhm.
and there were regulars. So we would all cluster around, drink our Pepsi or 7-Up. And it was hot dogs, popcorn, 7-Up, and Pepsi.
Why didn't they have a liquor license?
Well, I don't think they could get one, number
Right,
one.
right.
And in those days, all you had to do in New York was you only had to be 18 to drink.
Yep.
Sure.
And some of us started a little bit before then,
Uh-huh.
passing. But anyway, they weren't interested, I don't think, in a liquor license.
Yeah.
They wanted this big dance hall where people paid an admission and came to dance. They, charged for their sodas and whatever. That had a boutique. And this was in the days of, sort of that mod,
Uh-huh.
Carnaby Street,
Sure.
all those kinds
Go-go
of clothes,
dancing.
go-go dancing,
Twiggy,
and
and all that.
And the Cheetah Club became this sort of mecca for the society people in New York as well.
Mm-hmm.
They would come by and they would dance and have fun, and then they'd go on about their business because it was right on 52nd Street and Broadway.
What's there now?
An office building.
Oh.
And it had been a theater.
Mm-hmm.
So this was diagonally across from the Ed Sullivan Theater.
Oh, yeah,
Oh, sure.
yeah.
Yeah, okay. So right there.
Uh-huh.
And so one day they came to me and said, because after my unsolicited opinions had become sort of legendary, they said, listen, we do auditions on Tuesdays. Won't you come and sit in? And, the guy that's booking the bands, I mean, he must have been all of 40, 41,
Mhm,
but he was not a consumer like I was.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can work with our guy, Jack, and, help him understand kind of what you're looking for.
Sure.
I'm the consumer index,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So at that time, Manhattan Community College, BMCC as we call it,
Mhm.
Borough of Manhattan Community College, was about 2 blocks away from Cheetah. So after my classes on Tuesday, I would walk over to this. Now, every nightclub in the daytime looks like
Oh,
hell.
yeah.
Right?
And it stinks,
I
right,
was going
like-
to say what it
Kind
smells
of
like.
like after a bad night.
Yeah.
So, and sure enough, the bands would be lined up. And in those days, everybody had a Hammond B3 organ with a Leslie speaker.
Uh-huh.
It was schlepping in and schlepping out, and everybody would sing because it was all cover bands
Yeah.
then. and they would all sing like an array of 5 songs were the big ones, but the most performed song at auditions was Respect by Aretha Franklin.
Which nobody could do, by
Which
the way.
nobody
Yeah.
could do, and they also couldn't spell. It was like RESPORT, things like that. So I looked over Jack's shoulder as he was filling out the contracts, and he kind of explained to me, this is union minimum, and this is the 10% agency fee that I get, meaning Jack.
Mm-hmm.
And that went on for about a month or so, maybe 4 or 5 times. And they came to me and they said, listen, we think it would be great to bring this operation inside. And, you would be our talent coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll pay you $125 a week. And you'll just run it from inside.
Wow.
And I went, I'm in show business.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
And that is how you came to the attention of Mr. Berry Gordy.
Correct.
Now, before you became associated with Motown, were you a fan of Motown's music?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I would stand online in the rain at the Apollo to see the Motown Review, as they call it, the Motortown Review.
Yeah.
And, I grew up in Harlem, so I had a very eclectic sort of upbringing in that we lived in Harlem, summered in Martha's Vineyard. I went to private school, but I hung out in the playground. You know what I mean? It was,
yeah.
So I felt like I belonged anywhere
Best
and
of
everywhere.
both worlds.
Best of all worlds.
Yes. And were your parents affluent?
No, very middle class, but my maternal grandfather was a physician.
Mm-hmm.
And so he had 3 daughters, of which my mother was the eldest.
Mm-hmm.
And he really provided a lot of the sort of upper middle class that considered
Sure.
at that time for a black family. It was definitely a generation beyond the domestics.
Yeah.
He had put himself through school. He immigrated from Jamaica, and he was that real Jamaican work ethic. And he provided for his family and bought the house in Martha's Vineyard in 1944, way ahead of his time, practiced in Harlem. And so while my parents only stayed married till I was 3 years old, my grandfather was really the father figure in my life.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, and the name De Passe, is it has a Creole origin?
It's that my mother says we're really Caribbean cocktails because I haven't done that
The
family
genealogy.
tree, but I think we find that up in the tree there's some Scotsmen and some Frenchmen and some slaves, and some, like that.
And so how did you meet Berry Gordy? How did that meeting happen?
Well, now I'm ensconced at Cheetah, completely convinced that I am in show business. Right?
Well, you were.
And really I was, because I was a buyer.
Sure.
I was hiring these bands. We paid them scale. And then 2 disc jockeys who were famous in New York at the time, Frankie Crocker and Rocky G.
Yeah,
yes.
of course.
Mm-hmm. Legends.
Decided that they wanted to do promotions on Sundays. We were dark on Sundays.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was put in charge of the Sunday tea dances, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Only they were booking name talent. So they had Chuck Jackson, Lloyd Price. They had all kinds of people that I got to see, and it was fantastic. And I was the boss.
Yes.
And I had to handle the security people and the people behind the counter and, all of that. It was like Eloise at the Plaza. And I was having a blast. So one Sunday, they booked Patti LaBelle and the Bluebells.
Wow.
And a friend of mine who was a musician, Jimmy Castor, said, you should meet Cindy Birdsong. She's great. You guys would hit it off, blah, blah. So when they came, I went to the dressing room and I said hello to Patty and, Nona and everybody. And I said, Cindy, I'm a friend of Jimmy's. And she said, oh, great. So we just yada, hit it off. And some weeks later, she called me up and she said, I've been asked to join the Supremes. What do you think? I said, are you crazy? Of course.
No, don't do it.
Right. Because Florence Ballard was not going to be with the group anymore.
Yeah.
So Cindy, who's my friend now, we've been out to dinner a couple of times when they've been in New York, and so by this time, I said, she called me and she said, I'm coming to New York. It's my first Ed Sullivan show.
Wow.
And I said, I'm going to take you out. We're going to celebrate.
Uh-huh.
And so in New York at that time, if you were Black, it was very hard to count on getting a cab.
Yeah.
They would kind of roll up on you and see and think you were going to Harlem and then zoom off.
Right.
So I did what I thought made the most sense was I rented a limo that I couldn't afford.
Yeah.
And so I, with all the one-way streets, the limo picks me up in front of Cheetah, but Broadway is southbound. So we went around all the one-way streets, coming to rest at the stage door, 52nd Street, going west. And I'm sitting in the stage door, hands neatly folded, dying to go inside. Desperate to go inside. But my mother raised a polite young woman, and so I wasn't invited in. I'm not going in.
Right.
And Cindy came out and said the words that really changed my life forever. Suzanne, Mr. Gordy's car has gone on an errand. Do you think we could give him a ride?
Uh-oh. There it is.
And come January 1st, 2018, that is the ride that's lasted 50 years.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
Well, of course, he gets in the car, practically dislocates his neck,
Wow.
immediately thinks I'm a hooker. Because there was no other logical explanation for why this teenager is giving him a ride in her limo.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So, I know that's what he was thinking. So we took him to his appointment, which was to view some artwork at a gallery, and waited for him. And he said, well, listen, why don't you and Cindy join me for dinner? And they were staying at the Essex House on Central Park South.
Sure.
So I had never seen a human being treated the way he was in my life up until that point. I'd seen a lot, but I hadn't seen that, where people were leaping and twirling and bringing phones to the table, and his kids were there, and entourage, and I was like, dang,
wow.
I guess this is something,
Yeah.
And I was like a sponge taking it all in. And so
and you were aware of who he was and how important he was.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I knew that he was the founder of Motown.
Sure.
And how old were you?
I was 19.
19.
At that point.
Wow. And so he was impressed with you. He knew what you were doing and why you were there. And so what was the next step to...
Well, there were kind of a couple of steps. I'll get to the punchline, which is simply that Christmas 1967, Cindy invited me to join her in Miami Beach, where they were appearing at the Deauville Hotel.
Not the Eden Rock.
The Deauville. They had subsequently, Diana as a solo appeared at the Eden Rock. But this particular time, they were at the Deauville Hotel. And in the penthouse, there were 2-story penthouses. And so one 2-story penthouse was Berry Gordy and his kids, and there were rooms off of those penthouses and stuff. Then there was a room that connected to the other penthouse, which was Diana Ross and her family and all of that. And Cindy and I had the 2 queen-size beds in the connecting room, which was like the traffic area between the two things. And I would sit with Mr. Gordy and his kids and his entourage every night for 2 shows, because in those days there was the dinner show and the late show. And during that time, he put me through my paces. He liked to play games of logic. Like, okay, if a plane crashes on the border of Italy and Switzerland, what side do they bury the survivors on? I would go, typically, Mr. Gordy, they don't bury survivors. So it was games of logic, and we'd be going down to the show, and he'd say, a bank of elevators, 6 elevators, or maybe it was 4 elevators, I can't remember now. And he'd say, okay, $5, which one's coming first? Stuff like that.
Yeah.
Very competitive, very engaging, and actually a lot of fun. So by that time, I had changed jobs, and I was working for another company booking acts. Now, it was Howard Stein had made a deal with Lee Goober, who was at that time married to Barbara Walters. And he had 5 theaters, Westbury Music Fair.
The Latin...
Westbury. Barbara's father owned the Latin Quarter.
Yeah.
But her husband owned these 5 theaters, and it was Westbury Music Fair, Shady, Painters Mill, Shady Grove. There were like 5 of them across the country. And at that time, those theaters were doing book shows. And in between the book shows, they were dark. So Howard, who had stolen me from Cheetah, said, I want to put pop shows in on the dark weekends.
What are book shows?
Book shows are Carousel, My Fair Lady.
Oh, I see.
Where it's a book musical,
Right.
and singing and costumes and all of that. And most of those theaters were in the round anyway. And so they had their, special kind of presentations. So then I began booking people like Sonny and Cher and, pop acts as well. But by New Year's Eve, 1967, going into 68, I had spent this Christmas week basically hanging out with not only, the Supremes and all of that, but with Mr. Gordy. And I felt comfortable enough at the party after the second show to say to him, Mr. Gordy, I do have a new job and I'm having a terrible time booking Motown acts. I can get, this one and that one and Sonny and Cher, and I can do all of this, but I can't find out about Smokey and I can't find out about Martha Reeves and I can't. And he looked at me and he said, I don't know what's wrong, but maybe we need someone like you to help us straighten it out.
Wow. Wow.
The forethinking on his part, too, though, to see what she had.
No, exactly. Now, we're going to take a quick break with Suzanne de Passe, but oh my God, so many questions. I just love it. And I was talking earlier about the whole folklore and urban myths surrounding Motown, and it's still is fascinating because, you try to figure out where the magic happens, how a phenomenon, try to deconstruct where it actually, and how do you deconstruct magic? How do you deconstruct kismet?
How do you keep music playing?
How do you keep that? We'll answer all of those questions after the break. Girl, that Squatty Potty is a brilliant. You talk about some of the great designs of the 20th century, the 21st century. You think things they're doing over at NASA, at the at the space
in the Bahamas.
No, at the Space Propulsion Laboratory. That's when I think of Squatty Potty, I think of really, really smart people who really understand what we need in our lives.
Well, they also understand the way the body works, and you'd think that a doctor would have thought about this 100,000 years ago.
Yeah.
Squatty Potty offers the ultimate in complete elimination. The science is simple. Squatting at the toilet unkinks the colon, allowing your body to shed, all that stuff that's blocked up in there. Squatty Potty offers multiple toilet stool designs, making your porcelain throne fit for any king or what else?
Queen.
Holla! Join the movement. Get it? By visiting squattypotty.com/Rue and receive a free bottle of Fruity Booty toilet spray with a purchase of $20 or more. And never forget, a happy colon is a happy life.
We are back with Suzanne de Passe, who has been just at the top of her game for 50 years, really. Running the Motown game, learning from the chairman, learning from Berry Gordy himself, and also coming to the table with so much knowledge. I've always been interested in your background, how a New York City girl with brown skin is able to sidestep some of the sort of social booby traps that we all have been faced with. How, I'm going to continue with this story, though, of the Motown story, but I've always been interested in that with you. I must have been a very sort of lonely existence because there are very few peers who could relate to you bopping around in limos and being the casting the bands for major nightclubs and all that stuff. Was it lonely? Did you find yourself with not many peers who could relate?
Well, I that's such an interesting question, Rue, because I don't think I noticed a lot of that. I mean, I did have friends, and I've always been sort of, my mother says, a social butterfly, in the sense that I really like people. I'm an only child, so I had to have friends in order to have playmates, stuff like that. But I've also always been very good on my own. I'm not, I've never felt lonely. I've been alone, but I've never felt lonely.
But for me, it wasn't even, I understand what you're asking and I get it, because you'd think that's, It was more growing up knowing Suzanne's name and being a singer and wanting to attain somebody like Suzanne to manage you or work a record or, help as an artist. To me, I was always drawn to her because of the fact that she was a woman amongst men. And you held your own. And being a woman and knowing where you are and how you did it, to me, that was more of the interesting thing is you not only hung in there, but you hung in there with titans that were men, and you were the only woman.
Well, first of all, let's understand that Berry Gordy was way ahead of his time, putting a lot of responsibility on women. And it started with his two sisters, Gwen and Anna, and then Esther Edwards also. He had a strong mother, Bertha, and that family of 8 kids. And so I think that he was very comfortable in his relationship to females. But what was something that perplexed me for many years was, and I finally got up the courage to ask him one day, I said, Mr. Gordy, can you tell me why everybody thinks I'm sleeping with you? And I said, it's been obvious to me because of the way I'm treated sometimes. And you and I know that I came here to work. And I just kind of wonder if you know why. And he looked at me and he said, well, I never denied it. Because, when you're not doing that, you want to be recognized for your work and your thoughts and your ideas and, accomplishments, whatever they may be. Not necessarily for your mistakes.
Right.
And I made a bundle, believe me. But
he was also known as someone who liked the ladies.
Yes.
So
I think that's still the case.
Yeah.
With his
yeah.
old butt.
Sure. Yeah.
No, he's such a charming guy.
He really is.
And
sharp as a tack.
And sharp as a tack. He's a no-salt vegan. And, we were out the other night at the opening of a play and, it was like old times, all of us, that are close to him.
Yeah.
And, I think the reason that my friendship with him has lasted, and he still thinks I work for him, by the way, and I never tell him I don't, He calls me and I'm in a meeting, I leave and I take the call.
Yeah.
But I think it's because we never did the uglies,
right. Right.
Because that can really mess you up.
Yeah.
It does change. The boundaries are really mixed when you do that. Some people are able to do that. Most are not. Now, tell me about finding the Jackson 5. How did they come to your consciousness?
Well, after the Miami, he said, well, listen, I'm going to fly you out in a couple of weeks because I'm breaking in a new secretary and it's very important, blah, blah, blah. Well, meanwhile, she didn't last. So I get flown out to Detroit and I was the shock of my life. This big, beautiful, they flew me first class, this big maroon Fleetwood picks me up. And then we arrive at these little dinky houses on West Grand Boulevard. And I went to Ronnie Garnett, who was the driver, and I said, I'm supposed to meet Mr. Gordy at his office. And he said, well, this is it. And I went, no. The little Hitsville building?
Yeah, yeah.
So his office had a desk in it that was so big, it was one of the bedrooms of the house. He had to turn sideways to get behind it. And there wasn't enough room to sit in front of the desk, so I'm sitting perpendicular to him. He's over there. And I really felt like this is some Alice in Wonderland shit right here. This is unbelievable.
It is, yeah.
Can you say that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, of course.
Okay. So anyway, I followed him around that whole. Oh, by the way, they brought him breakfast. Now my plane had taken off at 7, and by the time you pick up an hour going to Detroit from New York. So I hadn't had breakfast, but they bring him a tray of breakfast and, kept it moving.
Oh, okay. Nothing for
nothing
you.
for me. No, sir. So anyway, I followed him around that whole day. We went down to the studio and there was Smokey Robinson and Marvin Gaye. And,
do you remember what songs they were working on at the time?
No, I think I was I was so thunderstruck that my ears closed up and my eyes opened about, 4 feet.
Oh my goodness.
And then we went to the Greystone Ballroom where he had bought the Greystone Ballroom and he was hitting golf balls. And then we went to a couple of meetings and, I'm just tagging along.
Mm-hmm.
So we go back to his house and the kids are there and I know them from Christmas and it's all hi and good and bye.
Mm-hmm.
And finally they take me to the Harlan House Motel
Mm-hmm.
Friday night late. And Saturday, waiting for me in the room is a portable record player and a stack of what's called acetates for me to evaluate. So of course I do, and it's all junk basically. They just dump the can, the rejects on.
Yeah.
And but I dutifully listen to them all day Saturday, all night Saturday. I don't hear from anybody. All day Sunday, I don't hear from anybody. I'm leaving on Monday. And so I called the one number that I had of the person who had dropped me off Friday night. And I said, Billy, this is Suzanne de Passe, and I'm leaving in the morning. I haven't heard from anybody. And tell Mr. Gordy I said bye, basically.
Right.
He said, just wait right there. Calls me back. He said, be downstairs in 15 minutes. We're going bowling. You can't make this stuff up, So I have on my little Bon Teller suit and off I go bowling.
Mm-hmm.
And he takes me back to the house afterwards and we sit down. He says, I think you're pretty bright and I want to hire you. I said, well, I couldn't possibly come to work for you without a contract.
Right.
He said, I don't do contracts. Of course, we lasted a long time. I never had one. And so I was hired for for Motown, and he sent me back to New York.
Starting as a secretary or as an assistant?
Creative assistant.
I love that.
Because I couldn't type.
Hey.
And he knew that other people could type, but I could think, and I could engage in conversations that were, implied taste and, stuff like that. Anyway, so I go back to New York. Long story short, I finally moved to Detroit. I did call him after I was getting paid every week. And I was there in my 5-flight walk up on East 57th Street getting this money. Mm-hmm. And so I called one day. I mean, I gotten about like 4 checks. Mm-hmm. And I said, Mr. Gordy, it's Suzanne. Mm-hmm. Listen, I just, I'm here and I'm getting paid. And, just wanted to know. And he cut me off. He said, do you think I'm stupid? And I went, no, sir, I do not think you're stupid. He said, I know I hired you. And when I have something for you to do, I'll let you know. Mm-hmm. So that was one of the first big object lessons that I learned from him. So I moved to Detroit. I'm in this apartment in 1300 East Lafayette. Diana Ross has the penthouse. Cindy is on an upper floor. I'm on an upper floor. Several of the executives, it became like the place where people who weren't from Detroit lived.
Yeah.
Who worked for the company. And one day I get a call. And by the way, this is all before cell phones and texts and fax. I mean, they had something called facsimiles before it was shortened to fax.
Yeah.
And Bobby Taylor, who was an artist on the label, calls me up and he says,
Bobby Taylor in the Vancouver's Bobby Taylor?
Right. That Bobby Taylor. Does your mama know about Bobby Taylor?
And Tommy Chong.
Tommy Chong.
Yeah.
And he said, I want you to come down to my apartment. There's something I want you to see. I said, Bobby Taylor, I am not coming down to your apartment. Nice try.
Right.
He said, no, it's nothing like that. Come on down. So I go down, and there, strewn across his living room, are these kids. And he claps his hands and he says, okay, this is Suzanne de Passe. She works for Berry Gordy because they've been trying to get an audition, I found out later. And so they got up, and they sang like 3 songs a cappella. Hair on the back of my neck went powy.
Of course. Can you imagine?
And I was like, wow. And so I went back upstairs, tried to reach Mr. Gordy. It was after hours. Got him the next day. And I said, oh, Mr. Gordy, I saw the best act yesterday. You cannot believe it. He said, great. I said, wait till you see these kids. He said, kids? I don't want any kid acts. Do you know how much trouble Stevie Wonder is? And I went, oh, but these kids are, he said, no. It's too much trouble. It's the court approval. It's this, it's that, and yeah. And I think my big claim to fame is I did not take no for an answer.
Oh, my goodness. Thank God. Thank
I'm
God.
not saying they wouldn't have found another way in, but it
Mhm.
happened to be on my watch, and I got the audition, and they were eventually signed.
Have you ever felt that kind of reaction from watching someone's audition after or since?
Yeah, I've had, you were speaking about Thelma Houston.
Mm-hmm.
When I first saw Thelma perform in Las Vegas, when she had the Sunshower album,
Mm-hmm.
I was blown away and ended up signing her to Motown. And when I saw Lionel Richie with the Commodores at the audition, I was blown away
Mm.
because he sang a Jimmy Webb song, The Wichita Lineman. And I thought,
Wow.
because I had such eclectic
Yeah.
musical taste that I thought, wow, that's pretty cool. And he had a great voice.
Oh my goodness. It's just amazing. We're gonna go on as long as she can go on. Okay, so we'll just cut this part out. As long as she can do it, we'll you tell me when you have to go.
Okay.
Because I there's so much here.
Mhm.
So all right, so let's fast forward into Motown moving to Hollywood.
Mhm.
How long? What's that, honey?
Then he's saying you want
Oh
to take
yeah,
a
we
break.
take a break. Okay, so
Mhm.
all right, so Suzanne, we're going to take a quick break right now,
Okay.
but I want to talk about Motown moving to Hollywood and venturing into film
Mhm.
and your ascension in the company. So we'll take a break. We'll be right back with Suzanne de Passe. Girl, ZipRecruiter is changing the game. Look, if you're looking for people to work for you,
Right.
you got to go to ZipRecruiter.
You're the boss. You're the casting director. You're looking for people to work for you. You can post your job to 100 job sites with just one click. Actually, it's 100 plus job sites.
Wow.
ZipRecruiter. And then you know what they do? Their powerful technology efficiently matches the right people to your job better than anyone else. And that's why ZipRecruiter is different, because unlike other job sites, ZipRecruiter doesn't depend on candidates finding you. It goes out and finds them.
Oh,
And
okay.
listen to this. In fact, over 80% of jobs posted on ZipRecruiter get a qualified candidate in just 24 hours.
24 hours, Michelle. I mean, think of the things that could happen in 24 hours. That's such a short amount of time.
They'd be waiting for months trying to find the right person. You can get it in 24 hours. No juggling emails or calls to your office. Simply screen, rate, and manage candidates all in one place with ZipRecruiter's easy-to-use dashboard. Find out today why ZipRecruiter has been used by businesses of all sizes to find the most qualified job candidates with immediate results. Oh, yeah, you guys, you can't do one of our things without getting a discount, right?
Oh, okay.
So right now, our listeners can post jobs on ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, Reese said free. 4-letter word started with an F, F-R-E-E. Just go to ZipRecruiter.com/Ru, ZipRecruiter.com/RU.
Get to it one more time.
One more time, ZipRecruiter.com/Ru.
We are back with Suzanne de Passe. We're talking about her life at Motown and what an incredible story it is. Is there a book coming from Suzanne de Passe?
Yeah, I keep thinking I have more time to write it than I actually do. But yes, and I also am working on a project with Sony Pictures Television to do a limited series.
I love that.
Yeah.
Based on the book.
I love it. Now, Vanessa Williams has played you before.
Mhm.
Who would you get to play you now? Do you know?
Oh, I don't know. I guess you're supposed to think about that.
Yeah.
But I would love to discover somebody. I mean,
Sure.
I think part of the fun of it would be that, I would be open to not only people who are known today, but by the time I get it done, there'll probably be a whole lot more famous people to choose from.
Right. But in hindsight, looking at your career and your life and being able to study your own energy as a human on this planet, what is it? What is the thing that makes Suzanne de Passe really tick? What is it that years ago, Matthew Anderson said to me, Ru, what it is about you? You get so excited about things.
Yeah.
Your eyes start lighting up, and it's like a jukebox, or a pinball machine. You start going, ding, 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 ding.
Yeah.
And I go, oh right, that is what is that thing for Suzanne de Passe?
I think it's a number of things, probably a little cocktail going on in there. But one thing for sure that I believe about myself is that I'm a storyteller.
Mm-hmm.
I love to not only tell a good story, I love to read a good story.
Mm-hmm.
I love that whole place of imagination and of even true events.
Mm-hmm.
Just the whole notion of being part of that process is something that just makes me want to get up in the morning.
Well, but what about you that makes you such a great executive? Because listen, people come and go in this town, and there's a lot of people. I'm sure there's like you could fill a town with all the A&R people and all the show
Oh,
business
yeah.
people who have ever passed through here. What is it that makes you such a great executive?
Well, thank you. I think that I'm curious and innately curious about a lot of stuff, but also I really love what I do, and I think that I was laughing the other day when I was talking about the fact that the word still has become a big part of my life. Are you still working? Are you still happy doing it? Gee, Suzanne, you still look good. Things like that. And I think that it's such an interesting word because in many respects it means quiet and docile and, sort of still. But it also means enduring, and it also means, kind of that fortitude of, and so I am still at it. I believe, like, the song goes, use me till you use me up, and I think a lot of people aspire to retire.
Yeah.
And that is the end game for them.
Yeah.
And not so in my case. I
Right.
mean, I'm as excited today as I ever was about projects and people and putting those things together. And I think it does stem from being an only child because this business is so much a team effort. Anything that gets done, first of all, is a miracle. And on top of it, it's a miracle that you create with other people.
Yeah.
And no one person does it. I have wonderful support, my business partner, Madison, my longtime colleague, Suzanne Costin, my right and left hand, Martin Derrick, John McCarthy, who's been driving me for over 30 years, things like that. So there's a lot of stability and a lot of continuity in my life, which I really appreciate also.
Yeah.
Nobody does it alone.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Now, Motown 25 was a huge benchmark for your career as a television producer. Had you produced television shows before that?
Not on my own. I had finished a couple of things that were started, and I had done one TV movie, I think, but I'd never done anything like that.
Right.
at
And
all.
it's funny because it plays on PBS as a fundraising tool. And I watched a little bit of it. I remember when it came on too, because at the time I was in a place where I didn't have a television. I had to go, I was living in Atlanta. I had to go across town to some people's house where it was going to be, they were going to be watching it. And it was such an event because for so many reasons. I'm a big Motown fan, as is most of America, most of the world. When you think of Motown 25, what are the top 3 things that come to mind in putting it together?
First thing is that Mr. Gordy didn't think anybody would be interested.
You mean networks or the public?
Anybody.
Anybody.
And so the next time I spoke to him about it, I had sold it to NBC, and we had Richard Pryor as the host, and it was going.
Wow.
So there was that. Being told by Michael Jackson's lawyer that we couldn't film Billie Jean because he was acting on Michael's wishes that he would perform it for the people in the house, but he didn't want it to be, because it wasn't a Motown song and blah, blah. So having to negotiate that with Michael and inviting him to the editing bay. And if he didn't like it, we would take it out. And of course, it changed the complete trajectory of his career.
I just saw it the other day. It's
Right.
breathtaking.
And I think, there's a tie between Marvin Gaye's performance and Linda Ronstadt and Smokey Robinson duet. I mean, those, but it's like each one of those segments was in its own way a baby, that you were nurturing and cultivating and getting all those people there. And what was wonderful was watching the reconnectivity of those early friendships and
Yeah.
those early relationships and stuff
Oh,
like
the
that.
duet between the Four Tops and the Temptations
Oh, yeah,
is
absolutely.
hilarious.
Absolutely.
It is so much fun, and the joy on their faces and the camaraderie was brilliant.
Yeah.
Was that Marvin's last public TV appearance?
I think so.
Wow.
I think so.
And he also sang a song that was on Columbia at the time. Did he do Sexual Healing?
No, he didn't do sexual healing. He did what's going on.
Oh, what's going on? That's
Yeah.
right.
I gotta go back and watch
But
it
he-
again. It's been
It's
so
Brilliant.
it's magical actually.
Brilliant.
We did. I will have to get you guys the box set that we did. That's why it's on PBS. But the box set, if you like the show, you will love the box set because it has everything you'd ever want to know about behind the scenes. There's another 20 hours
Oh my
of
god.
interviews
Oh my
and
God.
rehearsal footage and stuff like. One of the funny things about Marvin was, he played the piano. He had that intro and he was
Yes, speaking about...
yeah, talking. Okay. So originally he was supposed to come up on an elevator. The piano was supposed to lift up. And in rehearsal, he got stuck down there. And so we have some of that footage.
my
Oh,
right?
that's
goodness.
funny.
And, and he is so hilarious because he's stuck down in the basement of the theater.
Oh,
And so we couldn't obviously do that because it was unreliable. But
yeah.
things like that happened.
What is I don't want to dwell. There's a certain sexuality. There's a sweetness and a smooth. I can't even describe it about him. That is just and so gorgeous.
Look, he just had it.
He just had it.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have. And this brings us to an interesting point too, because you've seen a lot of brilliant acts come and go, and mostly go.
And
Mostly aren't able to sustain it, or you that thing in Rich Dad Poor Dad where they talk about how if poor people win the lotto 5 years from now,
They're broke.
they're
yeah.
broke
Yeah.
because their relationship with abundance hasn't been updated. As you've seen these people coming, is there anything you could say to them? Is there anything you could do? The ones who are able to sustain it, what's the secret?
I think it's, oh boy, each one is individual. But if you look at Diana Ross, if you look at Smokey Robinson, Stevie Wonder, the Otis Williams of the Temptations, that they listened at some point to more than the immediate stimuli. They could see beyond it and know that even though they may have made mistakes, that those mistakes weren't irreparable and they could be corrected. And I think there's a little bit of that because so many of those kids grew up with absolutely nothing to speak of. And you talk about an abundance awareness or an abundance acceptance. I saw just how much the material transformation impacted them in terms of it was more important to front
Yes.
than to
Actually,
save.
yeah, and save and own and own what you're doing and be there for the experience.
And look, a lot of the acts did not. The ones that I think Otis is one of the few that has survived, and Duke of the Four Tops, who were not songwriters per se. Stevie, Marvin, Smokey, those artists that really created their own material had that cushion of regular income coming. But the artists, the record would have to sell or they would have to perform or sell some merch. You know what I'm saying? They weren't getting the performance royalties from the radio stations and the clubs and, commercials, stuff like that.
So who owns Motown now? I know it was enveloped by Universal Music, but is it sectioned off in different parts, like the images, there's the catalog of music, the master tapes, there's the logo, there's the images. Is it all one lump or is it sectioned off?
Well, to my knowledge, a man by the name of Harry Wanger is really responsible for the catalog and the repackaging of the music. But it's all under Universal.
Harry Wanger's done a great job. He did this thing for 20th Century Fox for Stephanie Mills that was brilliant because it had things in there that only a fan would know about.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, I signed Stephanie, who's one of my.
Oh my God! That Burt Bacharach album is a fine. I listen to it all the time.
Well, she was at the opening. I told you I went out with Barry the other night, and she was at the opening, Stephanie, and I hadn't seen her in years.
Wow.
And, one of my Madison and I are looking to bring her back to Broadway in a
that would
musical
be
Please
great.
do.
that we're working on.
She did her first album at Motown called For the First Time. It's produced by Burt Bacharach and Hal David. It is a masterpiece. It wasn't.
It was before its time.
It was before its time.
That's what Stephanie and I were talking about the other night at theater because we really were before our time, and the audience was not acclimated to that sound.
Right.
You know,
right.
at the time.
You should go back and listen to that album again.
I plan to. I thought seeing her was a sign because we've been looking for someone for this role, and I thought, perfect. Bringing her back to Broadway in a show-stopping number. I can't wait.
That would be great. Now we got a little bit more time with Suzanne de Passe. We're going to take a break real quick, and we're going to wrap it up. Stay with us. Squatty Potty is a brilliant design.
Brilliant,
It
Rue.
really makes so much sense when you really think about it. The way it works, it unkinks the colon so that you can eliminate all of the waste properly.
Because the normal way that you go to the toilet is all kinky.
Right. Listen, I'm reading this book about women who were having these babies in the turn of the century.
Out in the field?
Yeah, well, and you know what they did?
They stood up and
they
squatted. Yeah.
Yes. And the same thing works for other things that you want out of your body.
Well, yeah, because what happens when you give birth? Poop.
Do you really?
Yes.
I've never had a baby.
I mean, I didn't. I had C-section. My baby.
But you don't poop when you have a C-section.
No, you don't, because you don't feel anything. You can't even feel your feet. Listen, Squatty Potty comes in all shapes and sizes like Echo, wood, a sleek teak finish.
I have the sleek teak.
Yes, girl, an adjustable bamboo one, a foldable porta squatty for the road. They have two sizes, a 7 and a 9 inch.
Do you take one on the road with you?
No, but I'm looking at this portable one, a foldable one to take on the road.
I think I want that.
Yeah, I want it too, Squatty
Can you
Potty.
tell them I want that?
Yeah, we're telling them right now.
Okay.
We each want one right now. And they actually gave us something new called Squatty Potty Clears, and those are the ones that are like lucite. So they go with any decor.
Yeah, you have that, right?
I do have that one
Yeah.
in my upstairs. It's a 9 inch, so it's a little big, but I make it work. I make it fit.
Very sophisticated.
It
Very
is.
chic.
Squatty Potty doesn't just help you squat, though. They sell these brilliant toilet sprays that smell wonderful, and they have an incredible new bidet. And
Really?
the bidets are really easy to set up, so don't get freaked out. It takes literally 10 minutes of work to install in almost any toilet. Phenomenal, costs $38, better for the environment, reduces waste, blah, 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 everything you need. Literally and arguably high English. It's a cleaner experience. So join the movement by visiting squattypotty.com/Rue and receive a free bottle of Fruity Booties toilet spray with a purchase of $20 or more. I'll say it again. Fruity Booty. Remember, a happy colon is a happy life.
We are back with Suzanne de Passe. So many questions. So many legends. And you're still, actually, as you were describing the definitions of still, I was thinking of a still for moonshine.
Oh, right.
So there's another
there's another one,
one where you can go and get your drink on,
Right.
So what kind of projects are you working on now? What do you want to do? I know that Daytime Divas, which is on VH1 with Vanessa Williams again, who portrayed you in the Jackson story, was called, what was it called?
American Dream.
American Dream.
Jackson's an American Dream.
Yeah, and actually, what's funny? You and I sat next to each other on a plane going
That's
to New
right.
York, and Vanessa Williams was in front of us.
Right.
Oh,
It's
no
an
way.
interesting
I know.
That is it.
symmetry.
How you
That's
cross
right.
paths with the same people all
I
the
auditioned
time.
for that Daytime Divas, too.
You did?
I did for the Tashina Arnold. Ultimately got the role.
Yes.
But it was fun.
Well,
Fun script.
Suzanne
Oh, I
is
didn't know that.
producing.
Yes, I auditioned.
Produced that show, and what other things are you looking to do? More television, more movies,
more
Broadway.
television. Well, more all.
Yeah.
More all, because I am undisciplined in my appetite, and I do not specialize. If it raises the hair on the back of my neck or it excites me and I can shut my eyes and watch it while I'm reading it and all that stuff, I want to do it. And I do not place a limitation on that. And, my colleagues look at me sometime and say, hey, there she goes again. But, you never know. And I am such a fan of the audience because that's the vote that counts. So my job is to get things that I believe in and I love with other people past that person that's between me and the audience, because I accept their vote more than I accept somebody's in a room saying, well, I don't know, I don't think it could work.
Right.
So
How has the audience changed, though? You've been in the business for a long time, and obviously formats change. People are streaming for television, and they get music a different way today. How has the audience changed?
I think the audience has principally remained the same in terms of what they want, which is to be entertained and to feel something, to laugh, to cry. They want to be in some way affected by investing their time. But I think what has changed is the method by which those things are delivered, because each of us now is our own radio station and we're our own television station and we're our own movie studio. So as we collate those things in the course of a day, we may decide to read a book on tape and then play a video game and then watch a couple of episodes of something and then listen to some music while we're playing a video game. My godson multitasks in a way that would fry my brain,
Right?
Because the video game is going and the sports channel is on his television, and yet the music on silent, and the music is in his earphones,
And they're doing homework
and
on top of it.
please God. But I mean, it's so the audience. I know from the wonderful feeling you get when you stand in the back of a screening and the audience laughs when you anticipated they might, and then they educate you by crying where you didn't think they would. There's so much to be learned when you get to do that. And that to me is the soul food of really having an effect on people that is positive, and that is, not everything is supposed to be uplifting and joyous, but where you are entertaining and informing and hopefully changing the hearts and minds of people who may not be 100% agreeable in terms of their humanity, in terms of what I think is agreeable.
When did you know that your ability to you talked about the hairs on the back of your neck and knowing how to trust your intuition about things? When did you become secure in knowing that was the thing? That was the thing that you could transfer from booking bands at a nightclub to signing acts to a record label to producing TV shows or movies or whatever. When did you know that was the thing?
I don't think I ever knew, really. I think I just think I wanted to keep looking forward, and I wanted to keep, well, hey, this worked, so let me try something else, and let me. But Barry Gordy gave me the greatest opportunity anybody could have ever had in their lives. It was like a candy store of opportunity. It was just unbelievable. And I think I took the bit in my teeth and I just went for it. But I don't think today I have confidence, I have experience, and I have an appetite for tomorrow and today. But I don't know, really know. I just believe.
What would he say is your forte? What would Barry Gordy say?
I know what he'd say. Getting along with him.
Sounds
Is it hard to
right.
get along with him?
Well, let's put it this way. He's mellowed. He's a little bit, not a lot. But I mean, he was tough. And I call him my mentor and my tormentor. Because
I love that.
Because he was tough.
Tough. Did you ever think, I'm getting away from this guy?
Well, my mother, I remember my mother saying to me, I'd been there about 8 or 9 years and had cried most of that time. These are tears of sadness. I was just frustrated. And she was like, good Jesus of Nazareth, are you ever going to stop crying? That was her thing. Leave. Yeah. And I said, I can't.
Yeah.
Very clutch the pearls.
Yeah. But so he's tough. Do you think he, in hindsight, did he have to be that tough?
You know, probably because of his personality. I
Mhm.
mean, he had a lot on him,
Sure.
you know, and a lot of expectations placed on him. And as the business began to change and things, but I mean, he thought nothing of dressing you down in front of a room full of people.
Mhm.
I mean, that was just,
That's a lot to handle. It takes a
Yeah.
special person to handle it.
and I wasn't the only one getting it.
Sure.
But, you know, feel like you could sit on a dime and swing your legs. It's just like down to there.
Was it justified? I mean, in hindsight, did he have to?
I never thought it was justified.
Never. Yeah.
No, but you know, one thing I did learn from him, and that was that in the, let's call it the palace,
Yeah.
and the intrigue of the palace, that if I got to him with a mistake or something that didn't happen properly, even
Mhm.
if it wasn't my mistake,
Mhm.
if I got there first, it empowered him because everybody else was running to tell it. And if he could say, I know, she told me.
Right. Right.
So that was a big part of my building confidence with him,
Mhm.
is because he didn't use it against me. He used it for us,
Right.
basically, and to protect me.
Yeah.
And that was something that I thought was kind of genius.
He also
Right.
trusted you.
Right.
And still does, I'm sure.
And I trusted him.
And you could be his eyes and ears.
Yeah.
And he could trust that.
And he knew that I was 100% loyal to him.
Did you have any say in the Motown musical?
In the early days, I was
Mm-hmm.
involved, and then, you know, he had to take it to New York, and, you know, I have a company to run, and
Mhm.
I couldn't really participate. I'm a character in it, though.
Mm-hmm.
And I told him, how dare you put me in that ugly wardrobe? I never dressed like that a day in my life. So that's all I saw was, what the fuck is she wearing?
Yeah.
I was just like,
thank you for
thank
that.
you very
Yeah.
much, you know.
Now, before we close it, I
yeah.
just want can you a story about Diana Ross, because you know I'm a big Diana
course.
Ross
Right,
fan,
yes.
and you know, and I listen. You know, I can be objective about Diana Ross. You know, I understand that I'm in love with the image of her, but
Mhm.
also I know her personally. I know that she's a human being, and that the two are separate things.
Mhm.
Is there a story you could tell on the air that I don't know that I wouldn't know about?
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure you can, but what we can
There's-
tell on the
but-
air.
Yeah, but I know, yeah, most of them could be told on the air. First of all, I think having been her maid of honor and then her matron of honor at both of her weddings,
Mm-hmm.
we did enjoy a very close friendship after a while.
Mm-hmm.
But the first time that I was there at the Ed Sullivan Theater, back to the old Ed Sullivan Theater, and Barry Gordy, now I'm his creative assistant, taking down everything that he thinks he wants to tell somebody and what else I might want to help him tell them.
Uh-huh.
So we're in the dressing room, and it's Mary, Cindy, Diana in the mirrors, you know, with the things, and
Mm-hmm.
and all the exposed pipes
Sure.
in the old theater. And so in those days, they used to do a hit and a standard.
Mm-hmm.
They do 2 songs on Ed Sullivan. So they had their costume for the hit, but Saks Fifth Avenue had sent over 3 sets of dresses for the standard.
Mm-hmm.
And so everybody's putting on their makeup, and Diane says, as she called him, Black, what dresses do you think we ought to wear? And he looks at me and says, I don't know, what do you think? At which point she takes her
Makeup brush?
Yeah, her blush brush, throws it at the mirror and says, what are you asking her for? She don't know nothing.
Maybe Diana designed the dresses that the character wears in the Motown music.
Yeah, right. And he said, maybe you better wait outside.
Uh-huh.
And then I found my dime and I sat on it. And I
Yeah.
Yeah.
How
How long
now
did
this
it
is
ta-
this is the woman who named her first child.
Yes.
Rhonda Suzanne.
Yes.
Mind you, but
Yeah.
that's how we started.
Yeah. How long did it take from that moment to the point where she was naming her child after you?
A few years.
A few years.
Yeah,
Because
But
she felt territorial.
but you know what? It wasn't that we didn't have great times even the next day.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But I think it was, he was her man at the time,
Mm-hmm.
and she was asking him a girlfriend question.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
he was passing it off to the new girl. You
Right.
know, that's enough to make anybody.
It is that she was being territorial.
Yeah.
She's
Yeah,
marking her
right.
territory.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh my
But
goodness.
but I mean, there are a gazillion adventures that we shared. But the beginning was a bit rough.
I would think. Yeah. You know.
And we had been friendly before that, but that's why it surprised me so much, is because we hung out. And stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting. Michelle was in a girl group for a long time, and you know, girl groups, the dynamics between women in that situation, it's almost hard to invest your as a consumer in your time in a girl group, because you think they're not going to stay together that
No.
long.
And I was a baby, so that helped me.
Yeah.
Because I was 19, and the other girls were 25 and 26.
Wow.
So they, in a sense, I was just like, I just want to do whatever I want.
Yeah.
It was like one of the worst deals in history, but I didn't care
Yeah.
because I was going to be a star. Nobody was going to stop me.
Yeah.
Whereas they thought everything through. And at the end of the day, I wanted to go out and have fun. They were like, I want to go back to the hotel and sleep. You knew right from the beginning that we were doomed.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
you just
Yeah.
knew. But it is hard to invest because they're not going to last.
Yeah.
Well, there isn't one that has.
No,
Probably
but-
the Andrews sisters.
right,
you go.
right.
And
Or-
weren't they
yeah,
sisters?
Yeah.
Didn't they
Yeah.
have to?
Sisters,
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining
you for
us.
having me.
So much fun. And so many. So I'm looking forward to this book. Get somebody to collaborate with you and get it out, because it's
Yeah.
important.
Yeah.
It's important for
No, I need to get on my horse about that. True.
I love it. Well, thank you,
Thank you
Suzanne de
both so
Passe.
much.
Thank
So
you.
lovely.
I had a ball.
Good.
That was amazing.
Yeah.
And Michelle Visage, until next time, my
Yes,
dear.
my darling.
Bye.
Bye.
Can I get an amen? Can I get an amen? If you can't love yourself, how in the hell you gonna love somebody else? Can I get an amen?
And don't forget to
get
subscribe
an
on
amen?
iTunes.
If you can't love yourself, how in the hell you gonna love somebody else? Amen.